Hi there, welcome to my channel. So I have been practicing junk journaling, and today I decided to create some DIY paper or dyed paper. So we will start by making a cup of tea. I will make a cup of tea with some hot water, and I will also make a cup of coffee. So we're going to use the tea to dye the paper and the coffee as well to dye the paper. So these can also be called natural dye, as they do not have any added chemicals, or DIY at home dye or homemade paper. Okay, so I made a cup of tea, and after I made a cup of coffee, and I will just be using random paper. I have these pages from an old book that I used to draw in 2011, and I have some plain paper, I have some colored paper, I have some lined paper, and I want to see what different textures and different hues I will get from the tea and the coffee. So I made the tea quite strong with 4 bags of tea bags, and I put it in a pouring jar, but then I added 1 more cup of hot water after that. So after that, I got a tray. I was supposed to use like a deep long bowl that the paper will fit in properly, but I didn't have that. So I used a tray that was as deep as it could get. And I first started with the coffee, and I poured the coffee over the pages. I didn't want one solid color. That's why I didn't also dip them completely in the coffee. So I wanted different patterns and different textures from the droplets and from the coffee as well. So if you wish, you can just dip all of the papers in and you get a different texture. So each method that you use will give you different shapes, different hues, different textures as well. And that's me trying to create different textures. Then after that, I took the papers outside. It was a nice warm sunny day, so instead of me wasting electricity and putting them in the oven, I decided to take them out into the sun, and I hang them on the grass. I hang them on the grass because I wanted the coffee and the tea patterns to stay onto the paper. The first short DIY that I tried, when I removed the paper out of the coffee ran down the paper and it created these lines, and that was not the design that I was looking for. So I just spread them onto the grass, and the next thing that I did was use the tea. There's also this reusable tissue paper that I got from one of the companies, and I wanted to use this as my inner journal cover page. So I just wanted the different color because the white was not doing it for me. So that's why I got this tissue paper to use. I also got some magazine pages that I want to use for the cover page as well of my journal. So those are the different materials that I used. You can also dye fabric, but with fabric you can add vinegar, or you can add salt, or you can boil the cloth in salt, so it will help the dye to catch onto the fabric. And when I finished dyeing and drying the papers, the coffee papers have a coffee smell. They have a beautiful coffee smell. And I noticed they give a darker hue, a darker shade of brown. And then these are the notes that I learned when I was dyeing my paper, that paper may tear. It is fragile. When you wet the paper and you're trying to lift it, it may tear. So I have a lot of pages that tore. And after you dye the paper in coffee and in tea, the texture of the paper is a bit thicker and it has a crinkly sound compared to normal paper. And then I also noticed that if you have two pieces of paper that is stuck together when you're dyeing the paper, it took longer to dry. And I also added some tea leaves from the tea bags. I just tore the tea bag and I threw it all over the paper, and that gave like little spots, little like spots on the paper. But the paper took longer to dry as well, and when the paper was dry, the tea leaves just flaked off. And I also learned that you can hang in a windy place as well. A windy place and will make the paper dry faster. You must be gentle and just trust the process, because when you literally pouring the tea on and the coffee on, it doesn't make sense. But when it dries, then it's gonna look beautiful. I also learned that if you use hot water, the dye catches on quicker than if you use cold water. You have to soak the paper for longer. And I felt if I soaked the paper for longer, it was going to come mushy and it was going to be soft. It wasn't going to be paper anymore. And you can dye the paper from anytime from 15 to 20 to 1 hour. 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 1 hour, depending on the dye and depending on how darker you want them to be, and depending on what type of paper or product like fabric or paper that you're using. And then I also learned when I lay the paper on the ground, and when it's almost dry, because when it's almost dry, then the wind started to blow the papers away. So when I saw that the coffee was almost dry, I then hang them onto the line so that I don't get those streaks. I also learned that you need to check them constantly, and if you add bicarbonate or salt to your mix, the hue and the texture is also different. And when the tea papers that I dyed had no scent or a slightly sweet smell. And you can dip the paper into the tea or coffee or whatever you're using to dye, or you can brush with a paintbrush or a sponge. Brush the paper with a paintbrush or a sponge. And I also learned that you can step for different times. You can step for longer for a different hue. You can double step. You step and then you lay dry and then you step it again, or you can or after that you can also use a strainer to remove the matter. And you can also do a quick dip for a slightly different color, and different colored papers also give a different hue. And you can also mix different colors or different dyes together to get different colors. And I also learned that with each dyeing process, every time it gave a different result. And why should we dye our papers in tea or coffee or whatever substance you want to use? It gives us a different texture to the paper. The paper is slightly thicker and crunchy, so I like that flipping crunchy sound. It also gives unique shapes and patterns on your paper instead of having one plain paper all the way through your journal, you get different looks, different patterns, different shapes, different textures. It gives a vintage look, and I see it also dyed my corners a little bit. So instead of using a stamp, you can just tea dye them or coffee dye them. It also gave us different shades and hues of brown, especially on the white paper that I used. And it was fun, and it was also enjoyable. And other things that you can use for dyeing, you can use Drinker Pop. I found some expired Drinker Pop in my cupboard that's been there for a while, so I decided I want to try it in my next video. You can use avocado. You can use either the skin or the avocado pits. You can use turmeric. Turmeric gives like a different hues according to how long you left it in. You can also use red onion skins, raspberry, blueberry, yellow onion skins, blackberries, beetroot, red cabbage, rusty pieces of objects. You can use black beans, eucalyptus leaves, walnut shells, flower petals, and many other substances can naturally dye paper. You can also use green herbs to give you a green hue, or freshly cut grass, or different substances like that. So this was my first batch, and soon I will be making a journal, and please stay tuned. I've got this Facebook group called Journaling for Busy Moms, and another group called Crafts and Junk Journaling on Facebook. So please join me on Facebook, as I will be posting more frequently there in the groups. And I've got a page as well where I will be posting everything that I will be creating. I also want to try Bible journaling and daily journaling and junk journaling, of course. And I have this Bible journal that I made from scratch on my own, so I will create a video of how I made that journal. And I will also be talking about the basic supplies that you need, and I will also be speaking about, I think I made a video where I was speaking about the supplies that you can use, that you don't have to go out and buy things. You can use supplies from your house. And I am a beginner journalist, and I will take you as I walk through each step and as I learn. I just love creating things with my hands, and I love that you can make the journal unique to yourself, and it's something beautiful. It's something that no one else has made. It's something unique, something yours, something personal. And I love that personal touch and your individual unique touch. It sparks and enhances your creativity, and it gets you thinking, and it's more like an anti-stress thing where you just lose yourself while you're creating this beautiful thing. And when you're done, like I said, trust the process. The thing just looks perfectly, uniquely weird and awesome in one package on its own. It has lots of stories to tell. It has lots of memoirs and memories, and it's like a journey for me. So I just love expressing myself in this way, and I would love other people to see it and learn as well, and share the knowledge of what they have created with me. So join me in these Facebook groups where we can chat and connect with each other.